Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. I was contacted by Fifine and asked to check out their K6 stage mic. Now actually it says karaoke mic on the label there, but we're going to put it through its paces and do a little bit of an unboxing and comparison. I thought this could be interesting because it is a very, very inexpensive dynamic microphone, and I thought we'd see how it stacks up compared to an SM58 and kind of give you my thoughts on the piece of equipment. Before we get too far, Fifine sent this microphone to me. I did not purchase it. Everything else that you see in this video I have purchased on my own, but I have been asked to do a product review of the K6, and so we shall. Let's get started. By way of getting started, I'll also mention, if you haven't yet subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. It really does help the channel and it is greatly appreciated. There's a link to this particular microphone in the description, as well as other links that really help support my channel. I have to admit, and this is a little bit form over substance, the packaging looks really nice. It's really well presented. When it arrived, knowing that this is a very inexpensive item, I was immediately impressed by the fact that it looks so nice. Now this could be form over substance. I don't know. I've been waiting to open this. I don't know what we're going to find. But first impressions were really, really awesome. So let's carry on. All right. We've got that. Very nice. The user's guide, a little bit of foam, that's cool. Now, this is pretty cool. They do include a microphone. I'm a little concerned, just immediate impressions here with this microphone. Cable that they've included is, microphones are meant to be, they're balanced cables. And you'll notice here that this is just a tip and a sleeve, which means that if this is truly an XLR cable, then something has been left either unconnected or grounded in a way that I am unfamiliar with. Typically, when you create an XLR cable, you have a ground cable which forms the sheath, and then you have a hot and a neutral pin, and then they all get connected at the far end, and that's what keeps it balanced so you don't get RF or radio frequencies encroaching on your signals. So that gives me a little bit of concern, but I must admit it seems to be a well put together cable. Let's quickly unwrap this and see. I can see that there's some writing on the cable itself, and let's see if this is of a reputable brand or one that I've heard of at least. High grade, low noise microphone cable. So high grade, low noise microphone cable, if you can see that. Okay, well, we'll find out shortly. Let's have a look now at the microphone itself. All right. All right. I must admit, first impressions, really good. It's not the heaviest microphone I've ever held in my life, but it does feel as if it's a good build quality. It looks solid. The connections seem to be pretty firmly seated in there. It does have an on-off switch, which is nice for karaoke and things like that. Typically, most of the microphones I use don't have on-off switches. We're going to see just how much or how little noise that introduces into the system shortly. So, first impressions, good. Nice feeling mic, feels good in the hand, looks great. They didn't include a clip, which I find a little bit suspect as well. It'd be nice to have a clip. It does say that it's a karaoke mic, excuse me. So, okay, it's a karaoke mic. You're going to be holding this in your hand. That's fine. It still would be nice to have a clip because as a singer-songwriter myself or an instrumentalist, I'm going to be playing. I'm not going to have a hand free to actually hold the microphone. Now, fortunately, I have plenty of clips, and we're going to clip this thing up and start doing a little A-B comparison. There's nothing else in here. I thought that there would be a polar pattern and frequency response indicator. Maybe let's take a look in the quick start guide. Here I am throwing away this stuff, and I'm not even paying attention to it. Okay, so we've got audio, cable, what's in the box, and 2-year extended warranty with online registration within 90 days of purchase. That's cool. But let's see here. Standard impedance, sensitivity, frequency response, 50 hertz to 18 kilohertz. Entirely like respectable. Totally similar to most other microphones that are of the dynamic stage mic variety and other sorts of things. 210 grams. Okay, great. So let's hear this thing. Okay, so this is me talking into the Fifine mic. Honestly, I haven't heard it. I really don't know what this is going to sound like. I'm going to find out once I edit this section. But I can see that the levels are good. It took maybe a little bit more gain than the typical dynamic microphone would, but not like an outrageously large amount of gain when I was setting it up on the mixer. I'm going to switch now to the SM58 to give you a comparison. So here we go. Actually, before we do that, one of the things I wanted to check was just to see how much or how little noise was introduced by using the switch here. The switch is a nice idea, especially like in a karaoke setting when you might be handing the mic off to someone else, or if you're using it at a sort of casual club gig or something like that, you want to have a quick conversation or you're talking to somebody, it can be nice to switch it off. But if it emits a lot of noise, well, it's not particularly useful to us. So let's just see. There we go. That was off and on. So if I keep talking but I switch it off, you cannot hear me anymore, and then I'll switch it back on and you should be able to hear me again. So there you go. Your audio is not failing you. All right, moving right along. Now I switched over to the SM58, and I can see just from my meters here that the actual output of the SM58 is in fact even a little bit less than the Fifine, which I must admit is kind of surprising. It's worth remembering that SM58s are old technology, and the Fifine obviously is doing something else. So that's really, really cool. In terms of sound quality, quite frankly, I'm going to have to wait until I get to editing myself, because I haven't heard these yet. So I am just as new to this as you are. One of the things I am going to do now, though, is I'm going to actually swap out the microphone cable that came with the Fifine mic and see if that has any impact on the sound quality or the way it needs to be set up on the mixer. Just because I admit this is a little bit of me being a bit old school. In studios and things like that, we never used XLR to 1/4-inch cables that had, like an XLR on one end and a 1/4 on the other. We always used XLR, and then a specific IMP was what they were called, adapters at the mixing console to then change that cable. Rarely did we ever use a cable that was wired that way. So I'm going to swap in the XLR cable and see if that makes a difference. Okay, so when I plugged in the XLR cable, everything lit up red in terms of outputs and things like that coming from the microphone, and I could see immediately that there was a dramatic change in the output and what was coming into the system. So I suspect that if there's a weak link in this whole system, it's almost certainly going to be that cable rather than the microphone itself. The signal looks really, really good coming in. Again, I haven't yet heard this, so I'm really, really interested. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do this same kind of a test. I'm going to limit myself to the Fifine. I'll probably get that 58 in there again too, just because we want comparisons. But I want to plug this thing into my gig setup. So when I do like songwriter gigs and things like that, I use an AER Compact 60. I typically play guitar, and I'm going to do that now so that we can hear what this thing sounds like through a PA system, which is probably the way you're going to use it anyway. So let's cut to that. Right, so here we have the AER Compact 60 seated comfortably on my chair. And you'll notice that there's only one cable plugged into it. And that is because here at the top of our microphone stand, we have the Fifine. Now, I'm fond of saying that whenever a microphone is involved, all bets are off. In other words, what you can do in post-production is make things sound any number of different ways. So what I'm going to do, for lack of any extremely transparent way of making sure that you get the sound of the AER with just the fine, is I'm going to unplug the camera's audio feed, and you'll just get the camera's microphones. I could put other microphones on the AER, or I could plug the AERs direct into the system, but all of that seems like it would be much more contrived than just letting you hear the sound of the fine through the camera's microphones, which typically I would do different things, but I think that this is probably the best way to give you the unadulterated sound. Ooh, before I do though, also, you probably heard this earlier, but I was quite surprised when I used the switch here. Listen for it. You probably don't want to do that when you are handing off the mic from one person to another. So unfortunately, that's not something that we really want to make a habit of. But let's hear how we sound in context with some music. So this is the microphone through my AER. There's really nothing going on. The EQ is set flat, it's just a level, and this is just in context. Oh, FYI, the rejection seems really great on this microphone. If I go even slightly off axis, you lose me rather quickly. It just goes right out of the pickup, the polar pattern, almost immediately. Same thing around the sides. Happens around here. You don't hear much of it at all. It comes back in as I come closer to this, and it goes back out again as I come around the side. Really awesome, really great rejection. Like they dialed in the polar pattern really well. Just in practicing for a moment here, getting levels and stuff, I thought the sound was really nice. It seemed to blend really nicely with the guitar. See what you think? Honey, I have a notion. This divide is an ocean, and there's no harbor in this world for you and me. Like, it responds really nicely to the proximity effect when I come in close on it. And admittedly, like, I like to be on top of a microphone when I'm using it, which is the way I was taught to do things. So I tend to really get up on top of the thing. And it responds really nicely to the proximity effect. So as soon as I back away from it, it immediately starts to reject. And it's a really nice way to use a microphone. It's very conducive to playing or working the mic. You can hear them. I'm having to be very careful about my plosives, like those. I haven't taken the thing apart. If there's any kind of pop attenuation or anything like that that's happening under the grill of the microphone, it seems like it's fairly minimal. Again, though, let's remind ourselves we're coming in at a $20 price point, and for $20, I have to say, like, I'm reasonably well impressed. It's got a reasonable sound. Now let's do our due diligence here. I'm going to swap in the SM58 just so we can hear the difference and see if there's any difference. Okay, so now I'm back on my old faithful SM58 here. Nothing is plugged into the camera, so the audio is just what you are hearing through the AER Compact 60 into the room, being picked up by the camera's microphones. And initial response is I had to adjust the gain quite a bit, not quite a bit, a little bit, in order to bring the SM58 up to a similar level as the Fifine. All things being equal, though, you know, I don't know that there's, I mean, I don't mind adjusting gain all that much. It doesn't bother me. That's kind of what the potentiometer is for. Let's hear how it sounds in context. Honey, I have a notion. This divide is an ocean. There's no harbor in this world for you and me. So, am I more comfortable on the 58? Yes. I mean, I am. But then again, I've been singing on SM58s for 20 some odd years. Would I swap out my 58 for the Fifine? No, I probably wouldn't. for any number of different reasons, not the least of which is that when you walk into a club, people know these microphones. So the sound system will almost certainly be wrung out, meaning that the EQ will be set to accommodate an SM58. Your sound guy will know the SM58, all those sorts of things. Let's switch back to the Fifine and talk with that for a second here so you can hear that some more. Okay, we're back with the Fifine microphone. And it's definitely got a full sound. Like, there's a lot of fullness coming through, and I could probably even back off of the gain a little bit more with the AER and still have it be plenty present for getting through the end of this video, getting this video finished up. This, I think, would be a great microphone if you have an extremely limited budget. If you really need to carefully consider, we should all be carefully considering all of our purchases when we're buying studio equipment. But if you're really carefully considering your purchases, I think this is a really nice contender for a first microphone. If you needed a second microphone, for example, you do covers a lot and you're an entertainer, you're hired to do those sorts of things, and you want a microphone that you can easily hand to an audience member who wants to join you on stage and sing a little bit, I think this could also be a really nice contender for that too. Now, not the least reason is that because it's pretty hot, it's a pretty hot microphone for folks who don't make a habit of singing all the time, who don't use their voices all the time, then it's going to be very forgiving. It's going to pick them up pretty well, and they're going to be able to be heard, which is, of course, why they got on stage with you in the first place and why you want them to be there. You want to keep the party going, and so that can really help things out. It would be great if now, it would be unusual in the extreme if the switch didn't emit quite a thunderous crack. Like if it weren't emitting so much line noise, I think it would be very unusual. And let's do one more due diligence here. Let me swap in the cable that they provided into the AER and see if it does that too. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay, so here I've put the cable that came with this microphone back in place, and I've got it going into the AER, and let's see if we get the same response here. Very interesting. So, very interesting. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that I don't know everything about how cables get wired, but I am duly surprised, and that changes everything about how I feel about the usability of this microphone, particularly in a scenario where you're wanting to switch between people and you want to just have a quiet moment. You can turn this off. You can turn that off. You can turn this off without having to worry about big noise coming through the system, and that's really fantastic. So really great stuff there. I have to admit, with the cable and I find this really surprising, with the cable that they've got, I feel like the overall response of the microphone is a bit more even. And so, again, not knowing everything about how things get wired, I would be a little bit concerned about whether or not they've got the pins arranged in such a way or wired in such a way that it basically only works with the cable that they provide. Now, that wouldn't be the first time that a company has done that, but it has XLR, the microphone's an XLR output. It has the 3 pins, and it works, reasonably well, perfectly well with an XLR cable. And those are going to be much more typical and easy to find when you're out on a gig. And so that gives me a little bit of concern, but it's really quite nice that you can switch that on and off and be able to effectively mute the microphone without having to go over to your sound console and then come back and turn it back on. So really good, and it sounds really nice through the AER. I'm not getting any kind of noise, so the overall sound quality to me seems really great. And I would say that if you're really conscious, I think this is a solid choice for a first microphone. If you're budget conscious, I think that longer term, you're probably going to end up with an SM58 or a Beta 58 or something to that effect. But in terms of getting started, getting going, having your home karaoke system, having a second mic for use for audience members or just in general, seems solid to me. I want to give a shout to Fifine. Thank you for sending the microphone. It's been super fun. And I've enjoyed using the microphone, and I've enjoyed reviewing it, and I hope that you all find this very helpful. As always, take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing. My name is Jeff, and we'll see you again. Bye.